All right, everybody who's joining us on the Zoom will be starting in just a couple minutes. I went ahead and started the recording for this. These recordings are available on our YouTube at 360 Living Soil. And you can visit back with it anytime and check back in on the information that you saw here today.
Just 4 days. 2 days. Got 10 days off.
Yeah. Anyway, it was just up to I ran out of room. I write that thing here. You want to look at that? So he wants to have that. So, now he wants it back. Sure, you show me.
For those of us joining us in the Zoom, are any of you actively growing any plants right now?
All right, son. Just one print your name, sign it correctly.
All right, people, it's been a couple minutes here. People.
They're probably waiting for the last couple people to walk in. So
yeah, we're actually
but
waiting
you can-
for our host. Actually waiting for our host, Ryan Montgomery. I'm not sure where he is. He should be here arriving shortly. Just give us a few minutes.
Those of you just coming into the Zoom call right now, we're just waiting a couple more minutes for our host, Ryan Montgomery, to join us. And then we'll be started.
Right. Oh my God.
What I understand. Bill starts on such a. Bill, so. Yes. I got hurt. About how much it was.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started here. Thank you for joining us, taking part of your day. I'm sure you've got lots of other things to be doing, attending to your gardens and your plants and your animals and all those things. But appreciate everyone taking the time to be here. And for those of you joining us remotely, it's good to see you all, and hope this is valuable to you. I think a lot of times we look back on meetings and regular meetings and realize the cumulative effect has been very beneficial. Sometimes a snapshot, you may be thinking, what am I doing? But then you've got that knowledge and hopefully building relationships. This is what this is about. So we've got to appreciate Amy Weeks being here from the Auburn B Lab, and John Sotheby's. Haven't seen you in a while. It's good to see you guys, and some new faces in the room this morning, and also joining us on Zoom. So we all hope your summer's going well. I would like to say we hope the big heat stuff's over, but it's just July, right? So we're learning more about dealing with the heat in Alabama, and maybe where you are too. You've got additional stresses on things, but we've learned a lot. We were remarking in a meeting earlier this week. We're coming up on our 1-year anniversary of this group meeting together. So, and it's fun to look back over just a year and see what's happened and what we got planned for the next, next couple of months, not just the next year, but we'll share some of those towards the end of our meeting today. But I'm going to switch over and play Allie's rooster video. I'll let the rooster calls. So wake up, everybody, wake up. So let me take a second, and while I'm queuing that up, I do want to offer. Let's just pray together for this morning, and let me lead us in a time of prayer. Father, we thank you for the gift of this day and the chance to gather together to learn from one another, to be inspired, to be encouraged. Lord, maybe we have questions about some issues we may have, and we just look and see the vast experience that is gathered here, multiple generations of agriculture and interest, and maybe some of this is all new for us, and maybe we have some experiences to offer to bring the level of the shipyard up for everyone. So thank you for that opportunity. Lord, that we find ourselves this time in so many questions around things like food and food safety. And Lord, we believe that we have an opportunity here to address those issues, not just for ourselves, but for our communities. And Lord, we do want to make things better for everyone. So help us in that endeavor. Let us learn well together today. So open our hearts and minds for what you have us to learn. And this we pray in your name. Amen. All right, so give me a second. We're going to switch over to the video. Hold on a second. Not sure why we don't have any sign up.
group that we call the Enduring Empathy Project.
Let me start that over. You missed the first call.
Good day, everyone. I'm Allie Baumeister. My family and I operate an independent humanitarian volunteer group that we call the Enduring Empathy Project. Basically, we ask, how can we help, to anyone who shows up with a concern, a question, or a challenge. While much of our time is focused in Central America, where we travel between jungle villages supporting people in pain, with pain and injuries, we have also had hundreds of conversations with farmers around the world about everything from their health issues to difficulties with their farm. Almost every farmer I've spoken to has an overlap of the same troubles. Their expenses of both time and money are high. Their revenue comes under various and sometimes unknown threats, and the wellness of their plants needs nearly constant attention. Many farmers have heard about the health concerns directly associated with what they spray on their crops, but without a clear path forward, they will repeatedly use those products until they find a better way. They will prioritize buying these products only because of the system that they recognize and they know how to use, even if it doesn't support the majority of their long-term goals. Because farmers have to do whatever it takes to keep their yields consistent so they can accommodate their expenses throughout the seasons, and because they usually have sunk a lot of time and money on equipment and materials, making changes to their setup feels like an overwhelming challenge to many. My job has been to help them find a better way forward with a do what you can with what you have where you are perspective. And I try to step into their shoes and recognize the lived experiences of their day-to-day life. We focus on natural and locally available materials to replenish and stabilize the soil and form solutions based on what individual farmers have tangible access to. We create customized approaches that help develop better balance in their farming practices. When I learned about the three-product system that this network is currently experimenting with, it piqued my interest, primarily because it is by farmers for farmers. It is addressing the needs of the soil and the plants and encouraging better immunity for the entire farm. And it can be fine-tuned to address unique challenges instead of pursuing outright eradication, which tends to be more expensive and causes a lot more problems. And it fits into my desire to support the wellness of farmers, families, and communities by offering practical guides for farming in a more responsible and plentiful manner without disrupting their routines or needing new equipment. Your farm is a complex and alive piece of the planet. It doesn't only bear your name, it bears the results of generations of farming activity, often where only one type of crop was present at a time. This form of farming is referred to as monoculture farming. And while it has been the backbone of America's farming industry, it's causing a lot of challenges for the farmers who use it and for the environment around them. Because this type of farming depletes nutrients from the soil, we've done crop rotations, sprayed fertilizers and nutrients, we've met swarms of pests and imbalances, and primarily all of this is because we just don't have the biological components to help keep those factors in check. Through my research, I've discovered that plants which have a regular source of nutrients have a healthier immune system. Much like humans, having their health needs met is equal to having stronger health. With good health, these plants are capable of living more harmoniously and responding to biological threats in effective ways that keep these threats in greater balance. These plants also produce higher yields and healthier, more nutritious produce. So the question for me becomes, how do we create healthier farms while still utilizing systems that farmers understand, which are convenient, accessible, and will not only ultimately save them money, but will minimize their need for endless products and expenses or unhealthy temporary solutions? I believe this network is addressing this question head on. Utilizing the current practices most farms in America are already accustomed to, the agri-harvest system harnesses the immense benefits of magnesium hydroxide in nanoplatelet form, alongside NutriPlant 643 and deer repellent. It supplies a robust 360-degree support system to your plants. This setup aims to create better balance in your plants and soil. It allows for the use of your current equipment and protocols and decreases the need for harmful additives while increasing the 360-degree health of your pots, fields, and orchards. While we won't make promises that you'll never again have troubles, we do believe that by engaging with our network and utilizing these methods, you'll see a dramatic increase in the health, wellness, and yield of your plants. And we've got scientific results alongside actual real-life field studies to support this belief. The people here at New Water Farms are just one of many locations that have been testing this system. I'd like you to hear a bit from the people who manage their crops and develop their farming practices. They'll tell you what they've done in the past, how they've been supported and challenged by their old practices, and how the agri-harvest system is changing the lives of their plants and their produce.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Allie, for that introduction to why we're here and what we've been doing. Kind of overview. Covered a lot of. Not sure what that is. That's a new one. Yeah. Sometimes we're technically challenged, so it's humbling, isn't it? And everybody's staring at you. That guy teeing off at the first hole, right? Everybody's staring at him. Yeah, yeah. So Allie brings up a lot of good points. And why we're here and what's happening currently in the ag space and what we're trying to solve. But I think it begins with this great quote that she has about that this is a sacred endeavor, and oftentimes in the Western culture we compartmentalize everything. Okay, we put the fun stuff over here and the sacred stuff over here, the stained glass stuff over here, and day to day, but what we're talking about is this is all it's all related. It's all tied together, and really, this is if you follow the biblical narrative, it began in a garden, right? I mean, it began with a relationship that was there, and so the thing that we're talking about, of planting seeds and tilling the soil and cultivating the soil, it's a sacred activity, and it involves the community. A lot of times, I think we notice what's happened over time is that individualism has conquered our culture, and now there's a desire to return back to what we're doing right now. It's investing in others and receiving from others. And if you add up the years in this room, you could say, well, we've probably got 700 years of collective wisdom right here, right now, which is a lot of wisdom. But if you just said, I'm going to do this on my own, you've got just whatever your age is, right? And your limited experience. So this is the power of community, the power of building relationships. And we believe this is a very sacred endeavor. So we are 360 Living Soil Alliance. So living soil, that we believe the soil is a living organism. There are more microorganisms in a teaspoon of soil than there are in your human body. And so we're talking trillions of microorganisms. So it's not dirt. Dirt is sterile. It's not alive. We're looking at living soil. An alliance. We are aligned. We are working on this together. 360 means we're the entire system. So that's who we are. And we're doing this to build a resilient agricultural system. So agriculture, people, agra, soil, harvest, food, those kinds of things. Resilient means we can recover from stresses that are imposed upon us. Things like drought and pests and economic stresses, all those pressures that come from outside into our system. We want to build a system that can respond to those appropriately and not, she called it eradication. We don't want to eradicate. We want to build a living system that can take on those stresses. So that's who we are and what we do. Some great quotes that we live with. How we treat the land affects how it in turn treats us. So we're looking at working with nature, not trying to conquer and live off the land. We're looking at working and living with the land. And that's very important. That was a book that several of us have read called What Your Food Ate. It's a long read, a lot of science, a lot of micronutrients, a lot of words that I can't pronounce. They're more than 3 syllables, very long sentences, but a very scientific presentation. And this is in the last 5 years, what's happening in our food systems by David Montgomery and his wife, Ann Bickley. And so they look at what's in our food based on what the food itself ate. So the plants, what are they feeding on? That's getting passed on to us as consumption in our food consumption systems. So how we treat the land affects how it in turn treats us. And we know that looking back over the past, we know that historically, almost 100 years ago, our country was faced with a crisis called the Dust Bowl. And it came from our tillage practices that opened the soil up to the elements. And you had major wind erosion that's still actually occurring today. And on the heels of that, Franklin Roosevelt wrote a letter to all the governors of the United States that said, we have a problem. We've made it ourselves. This is not something that was imposed upon us, but our practices have created a problem. And the letter led off with, a nation that destroys its soil destroys itself. And so he saw the long-term effects of those practices and what they were doing to our country, to our food supply, to our jobs. It was, I believe, it's the largest population exodus in the United States out of states like Oklahoma to places like California. People just left the land. They just packed up and left. So it's a very painful time in our country. I don't think any of us in the room experienced, but maybe I'm sure our parents did, or we knew somebody that did. But very important that how we treat that soil is going to how it's going to treat us. So just quick review. As we moved from a small farm system to a mechanized industrial approach to agriculture, my degrees are in agricultural engineering, so I'm part of the problem. I was about, man, we can have autonomous systems, and I worked in machine guidance to where you could be playing on your. We didn't have cell phones at the time. You could be doing something else. You could be managing your farm while the tractor drove itself. And now we know we have systems that can do things at night with autonomous. We did research. Our group did research in cable systems that moved indexed across the field and pulled tillage across the field. You didn't need anybody to operate. You just programmed. We got lots of criticism. You're putting the farmer out of business. No, you still need the farmer. But we were heavily into the mechanized and approach from computer vision, automated systems, that kind of thing. So that's my education background. So I can't say that somebody else did this. I would have to raise my hand and say I was part of the problem. But things like over-tilling and destroying soil structure, opening it up to the elements, whether it's water erosion, wind erosion, those bare fields. I remember conferences in the 80s I went to, and the presenters were criticizing the farmers for leaving this is in Illinois, where they had this great soil, leaving it bare to the elements and losing all that carbon. And all these guys were like, "You're crazy. I mean, you're some liberal dude city telling us how to do it. We've always done it that way." But just, not taking care of the soil, and also with the mechanization, over-tillage, destroying the soil structure. Therein, you're destroying the microorganisms and living matter in that soil by over-tillage. Monoculture, just having year after year after year of the same crop over and over. Now they're saying that corn, soybean, wheat is not a rotation. That's monoculture. That's not a real rotation. And then the introduction of toxic chemicals, because I got this pest, so let me have this invention of this thing I can spray and take care of my bug, not knowing that it kills everything, and especially pesticides stay in the soil for a really, really long time. But introduction of toxic chemicals to make agriculture more efficient in the short term has led to some really long-term problems. And then in the rancher guys just overgrazing their fields down to a stubble, and then they've got a supplemental feed as opposed to cover crops in rotation. And the heavy rotation now is really taken off to where they're moving cattle multiple times a day in paddocks. So the thing is 1 day of munch, 25 days of rest, and letting those grasses come back. I know Ryan, I have a friend here in town locally that has minimized his grazing in his pastures. He's had a lot of native species come back over the years. So just doing much better management. But overgrazing has been a problem. You can see it as you drive around. These animals don't have things to eat. And what that's done, it's affected us and our food. Decrease in nutrient density. One of the facts we have here is today you got to eat 5 apples to get the nutrient benefit that you had 100 years ago by eating 1 apple. So a huge increase in the consumption of food to get the same nutrient density. You go to the grocery store and you pick up something. I remember a year or two ago we were doing a big meal and we went to the grocery store and we were looking for some cilantro. To pick the cilantro up, we actually crushed it. It had no smell. Like, why would you even use this? And you could have put cardboard on it, right? So just a huge decrease in their nutrient density, and then all the other stuff they're doing to food, the stuff they're spraying it with, and so it has longer shelf life and let it last bruising. I mean, it's really, really affected our food. Water retention. Leo and I were listening to a podcast on the way over, a guy in the upper Midwest, and he gets 5 inches of rain a year. That's it. And they're running hundreds of head of cattle, but because he's doing some better practices, he can sustain that life on that land. We go 65 inches of rain here. What's water? What's the problem? But the soils retain less and less water when you have less and less organic matter in this practice over tillage and chemicals in the soil. We see a decrease in earthworms, and you go, well, Ryan's going to share some of that experience. Well, but earthworms are the vultures and the buzzards of the soil. They eat the junk. They clean the soil for us, and they leave behind some great matter for us that Ryan's going to share with you in this presentation. And just, a decrease in drought resistance. We with these weather patterns, increased weather patterns, intensity of storms, we get here in Alabama, we've had 2 droughts already this year, and it's been tough. And then we have these massive rainfalls, so these big swings. But it's getting harder and harder. But then the flip side of that, we got more fruit and root rot. Here's a statistic to put in your hip pocket: 40% of our foods is prepared or put on the shelf to sell. 40% goes to the landfill. So we have more than a consumption issue. We have a waste issue. We see an increase in pest problems. Just came out this week, big study. I think Amy may know some about that, about the tomato viruses in the South. We've got a huge issue with tomatoes. Texas has got field mealy bugs eating their forage. 9 counties heavily infested. There was another one I read about that just came out. But anyway, lots of pest problems. We got stresses on our plants wilting, leaf discoloration, which affects photosynthesis, which affects yield. So a lot of decreases, a lot of increases, all creating some issues. But here it is, y'all. This is why we're here. In the documentary Kiss the Ground, there's a great statement at the beginning that soil is the beginning of the quality of food. And I know over the years, people ask me of what we grow and even things that we make, like pickles. Like, why are these pickles so good? I'm like, because our soil is good. It's not a bunch of stuff you add into it to make it grow. I mean, everybody knows you go and pull something out of your garden and eat it. It tastes really, really good. It actually has taste. So soil is the beginning. You got to start with the foundation, and a great documentary. So this regenerative methods, I'm sure you're familiar with. It begins with your context. Your context is the most important. What are you dealing with? What's your soil type? Where are you? What growing zone are you in? What's been the history? What are you trying to grow? What's your climate? Those are big questions to ask, but you start there. But you begin building the soil health. We propose cover crops and compost. Got a great presentation coming up today to get you started in composting. That's how you build soil health. You're going to increase organic matter. You're going to increase nutrition. Less things you have to add to the soil because those plants can sustain themselves based on a healthy soil system. Obviously, minimizing soil disturbance, things like no-till, minimum till, and you start getting into deep tillage. And I'm talking to Steve Haig, the head of the soil science department. He said Alabama over the last 100 years has done a really, really good job of eliminating the moldboard plow, because they quickly realized if they plow their land with the topography they have, we created erosion issues. He said, you can't find a moldboard plow in Alabama, rarely. My friend Scotty still has one, but we use it to bed up for watermelon. So that's, I'm going to go legitimate there. But yeah, so minimizing that soil disturbance, keeping the soil covered, and obviously minimizing or eliminating these synthetic inputs of pesticides. Notice they're all in an ide, fungicides, herbicides, genocide, homicide. Just think that. So these synthetics are quick fixes, but they've increased our long-lasting negative effects in our soil systems. Pesticides, like I said, stay in the soil a really, really, really long time. And so while it may treat something on the top, it gets into the soil, and then we got issues. You guys have seen maybe the graphs of things that are related to these synthetics. A lot of herbicides, particularly paraquat, those kinds of things. And those graphs of increased usage over the decades lay right over top of the incidence of chronic disease, things like cancer, Parkinson's, ADHD, all those things. Those graphs lay right over top of each other. I did confirm, I think somebody said in our last meeting that the highest incidence of cancer in America is in the state of Iowa, and that's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And a friend of mine is a Mohs cancer surgeon from that state, he and his wife, and they said, yeah, that's true. That's really true. I lost grandparents because of the chemicals that they use on their farm. And so that hit home. That hits home. We're seeing it in Alabama a lot with paraquat and Parkinson's with Lincoln. And they're approved chemicals in America. Paraquat is manufactured in China. It's banned in China. So the country that produces it bans it, but they sell it to the United States. So a lot of issues there. We won't get into that today. But another great principle is the living root in the ground year round. That's going to help the photosynthesis process and the carbon capture out of the atmosphere. So I always go, it's free fertilizer. So you want to keep a living root in the ground. And we all know that if you scratch a surface and remove the grass, the next thing you have is weeds. So the soil, nature doesn't lie. We work with nature. Nature wants to cover itself, wants to cover that bare ground up. But a living root in the ground year round. And Leo and I would even say, we had a discussion this morning, do weeds count? I mean, that's capturing, doing its thing and helping the soil out. But also we want to look at crop rotation. Different plants need different things throughout the life cycle. So if you plant the same thing in the same spot year after year after year, you're depleting that soil of several micronutrients. If you move things around, it balances out. But also those plants put things back in the soil. So plant diversification as well as crop rotation is very, very critical. So those are some quick things about building a healthy soil. Those are really the principles of regenerative agriculture. So that's what we're here for. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan Montgomery. Ryan's a long friend. A lot of times I tell this story. I don't know if I've told you guys. A lot of times, long-lasting friendships start out of tragedy, right? So my tragedy was, if you needed to find a water line at New Water, ask Robert to dig a hole, because I could find them like nobody else. I even had the witching wands, and they got me close, but I forgot what I was doing. I was digging a hole somewhere and right through the main water line. And the event was going to start. And so we had no water on. So somebody said, call this guy, Ryan Montgomery. He can come out and fix it. Actually, Ryan is what Kathy came out. And should I tell this part of the story? That Kathy dug the hole, Ryan fixed the pipe. But we've been, gosh, that's probably like 12 years ago. So yeah. So, but we always say what man meant for evil, God meant for good, right? So my tragedy turned into a long-lasting friendship. So Ryan worked with me at New Water for a while, and then had an opportunity here to come to Southern Prep and transform their food program in their kitchen. And I know I'll tell this about him. So he came and cooked for an event here, and all the students, and they ate the meal, and he got a standing ovation in the room, and a petition that every student signed: hire this guy. We like his food. So, but Ryan is a great grower, farmer. Is obviously a great friend and brother in the Lord, but really is really doing a lot of good things here, and not just for the school, for the community. So I'm going to turn it over to him. He's going to talk about composting. I encourage you to take good notes. If you don't remember something, this is being recorded, and you have an opportunity to look at 360 Living Soil on YouTube and get the presentation. But you can interrupt him all you want. He goes with the flow. So, but yeah, this is Ryan Montgomery. So you can just hit that button right there.
Afternoon, everybody, or morning, whatever it is. I brought some show and tell today. Talk a little bit about composting, something I'm pretty passionate about. I'm kind of a hoarder, like a functional hoarder. Like I see some people and I'm like, why did you keep that? But I see things and I'm like, man, I can use that. And then like 15 years later, I'm like, why did I keep that? But I know, like, if ever the grid goes down and everybody panics, the guy that has all the stuff in his yard is going to be the millionaire, right? That's where everybody's going to go to get, I need that part. I need that. So with composting, I'm like, man, that's good stuff right there. I can't put that in the trash can. I gotta put that in a bucket because it's gonna go in the garden. So I'm kind of hoarding in that way. As like when that breaks down, that's gonna be good food. There's nutrients still in that. My worms will eat that, you know. So I guess that's a little bit how I'm wired in my brain. So I want to talk a little bit about small scale composting. I know people do it on a big scale. For some of you Auburn folks out here, Mountain Brook has a great operation where they collect leaves. They go to a site, they turn it into leaf mold. You can load it for free with a shovel, or you can pay to have it loaded. But it normally would go in the landfill. Auburn doesn't do it. They take it and they go to the landfill. I think an agriculture town, we should start a petition and move like, hey, stop throwing this stuff away. We can use it. We can use it in our gardens. What can we do to help? Where you need some property at, somebody donate something. So there's got to be a way we can do it in our municipalities on a bigger scale to help us out. But we're going to talk about small scale today. Doing our part, one bucket, one pile, one pot at a time. That's all it is one bucket. At home, we keep like an ice cream bucket. I like a little bit of ice cream. We usually get like the gallon bucket with the lid on it, so the gnats don't get it. Coffee grounds, eggshells, pretty much anything. I will say worms. If it's going straight to my worms, if I don't want it in my eyes, I don't put it in there for the worms. That's a good way. So like lemons, onions, jalapenos, stuff like that. It can be composted, absolutely composted, but if you're going to go straight to your worms, just don't put that stuff in there. Why we compost here at Southern Prep? We have a lot. We have a dining facility. Right now I'm at maintenance, but I first took the job. I was at the dining hall. We would get 5-gallon buckets of pickles, and when that bucket is empty, that's a good place for the compost to go. So I work with students. We have got an ag club, and we're fixing to start an agriculture class in the fall. So we see not only what it looks like when it's on a plate, but what it looks like when it's in a bucket, and then what it looks like a couple months later. And I brought some show and tell today. So Americans generate over 290 million tons of municipal solid waste every year. So these are online statistics, and we just take their word for it, right? About 30% of household trash is compostable. Be careful with cardboard. I will say that we can do cardboard, but be careful with cardboard. There's something called PFAS, forever chemical. Think 3M for that. Doesn't go anywhere. It's in our water systems. It's another thing we've got a big issue with, and we got to figure something out. But if your cardboard is waxy, if it won't take water, if you get fruit at the market, your fruit at the market, and it's usually in fruit or lettuce or something like that, and it's real waxy and water just beads off of it, throw that stuff in the trash. You don't want that. That's covered with that PFAS. Do not put that in your compost. It's going to get in your soil, and it's never going to go anywhere, and it is a carcinogen. So be careful with cardboard. Probably most of the stuff that gets recycled, that probably gets recycled. So they shred up cardboard and they remake it. So, I mean, some of this stuff you're just going to have to pray about and trust the Lord for, because we've got ourselves in a pickle. Food waste is one of the largest materials sent to landfills. Organic material buried in landfills creates methane. So do cows. A greenhouse gas significantly more potent than carbon dioxide over a 20-year period. All right, just start small. What I say, ice cream container or a 5-gallon bucket. 5-gallon bucket's probably too big for most households, but if you got it, keep it. All my ends, from cutting up celery, the top and the bottom. Cutting up onion, the onion skin, the top and the bottom. Lettuce. If it's cooked with animal fat, you can compost anything. You just, I'll go fishing and I'll catch a bunch of fish and I'll clean them, but I have to have a deep compost pile. and I have to dig a hole in the middle of it, and then I have to bury it down in the middle and then not touch it for a long time. Those fish are going to get hot. There's a lot of nitrogen in there. They're going to break down. They're going to be great for my compost. But if I go digging in there in a couple of weeks, it's going to be a stinky mess. If I have a little compost pile and I have a dog, he's probably going to find them and dig them up and roll around in them. Ask me how I know. They sell tumblers online. You can get a little tumbler. Out here, we've got pallets. I just put a pallet on the ground. I put 3 sides, and then I cut one in half and put a little bit of a border on the front. You want airflow. You don't necessarily want anaerobic stuff. You want aerobic. So you want your compost pile to breathe. If it gets too big, you do need to turn it, but we're not going to get really technical today. Just put your stuff somewhere and it's going to break down and you're going to be good. You don't need a tractor. You don't need a large farm. You don't really have to buy the tumbler. Like I said, leaves, grass, we all mow the yard. We all have trees, most likely, kitchen scraps, and patience. Some compost piles take a little bit of time, but I had customers working as a plumber and they dumped all their grass clippings for like 20 years in one pile on the edge of their lot, and they never thought about them again. And that was like gold to me because I just so happened to be over there fixing something. And I was like, hey, what are you guys doing with all that? And I'm like, that's just where we put that. And I was like, can I take that? So I helped myself to that. But over, 20-year period, I mean, when I got to the bottom of it, of course, the top was green, but on the bottom end, that was some black, rich stuff, had all kinds of worms in there. Again, let's be careful. They're cutting their own yard. If they have these lawn companies that are doing their yard, they're getting sprayed. There's other things that are going into there. So we've just got to think about some of that stuff if we want to be organic. What can you compost? Green materials, vegetable scraps, coffee grounds. Yes, coffee ground is a green material. High in nitrogen, we think of green materials. Grass is a green and a brown, so when you cut it and it's green, it's high in nitrogen, but if you give it a few weeks, it's going to be a carbon. It's going to pretty much leach out all that nitrogen, and it's going to be a carbon. Garden weeds, you can do it after they seed. If you have a hot compost pile, we can talk about a little bit of that. Fruit. Brown materials, we got dry leaves, cardboard, paper, straw, wood chips. It says avoid meat, grease, dairy, diseased plants. If you're beginning, I would avoid all that. If you have a small compost pile, I would avoid all that. Big cities and some municipalities, they're going to compost deer carcasses and all kinds of stuff, and it actually makes really great compost. But it takes time. There's a science to it. You have pathogens that have to die, but everything returns back to the ground. And we'll talk about how it gets there. The compost recipe, it is pretty simple if you keep it 2 to 3 parts carbon and 1 part nitrogen. You can get nerdier than that, but that is pretty simple. It's going to take water, air, time. They have a thing called a Johnson-Su bioreactor where they literally take it's like a hardware cloth, but it's like a dog wire on a pallet, and they make a round circle out of it, and they take that corrugated pipe about 4 spaces in the middle, stand it up. They pack it full of leaves, and they put like a little timed sprayer on it. You don't want city water. You want rainwater or well water if you can help it. And what it does is it takes all those leaves and it composts them down in like a third of the time. But it has air, it has water, and how it's set up, it has a whole lot of air. So your microorganisms are what is eating your carbon and what's breaking down. And if they need air, and they're just going to town in there. Says compare it to baking a cake, wrong ingredients. It said some people would say bad compost. I say it's probably kind of mid. if you have smelly compost, you have too much nitrogen. That's an easy way to tell. If you've got a lot of flies or something like that buzzing around, you need to add more carbon. If anybody wants to see the setup out here, I can show you. I've got a pile of wood chips like right beside it. So if I go, when we get back serving again, I'm going to go nitrogen heavy some days because I'm going to have, hey, come and pick up these buckets. I've got compost ready for you. And I'm going to do 4 or 5 buckets at a time. So when I throw in those buckets, that's all nitrogen. That's all wet green stuff. I'm going to be shoveling in the carbon to balance it out. I gotta get 3 times as many carbon in his air as I've got nitrogen, or I'm going to have a big stinky pile with maggots in it. So I kind of mix it up a little bit, and then I'll cover the top of it good with some carbon that'll keep the animals out of it and the coons out of it and whatever else. I guess coons are animals. Cold compost, that is the less maintenance one. That is what I would recommend if you're starting. It is easy. It's slow. If you collect leaves, put them over, like my customers had the grass clippings, put them over on one side of your property and forget about them. That's cold compost. Just throw them over there and forget about them. Next year, when you go to plant your garden, you can utilize some of them. At the bottom is going to be the best. The top is still going to be just leaves. Hot compost. It's going to take some elbow grease because what I say we got to have some air in there. So our microorganisms are going to make heat when they're eating, but they're going to need to breathe. So every couple of days when it starts to cool down, I'm going to have to get in there, or my students are going to have to get in there with a shovel, and we're going to have to mix it up, and we're going to have to reincorporate it. A lot of times I'll put some really bulky wood chips and stuff in there with it when I'm hot composting, and that'll help keep some structure around some stuff and keep some air movement. I said we would get back to the weeds and the diseased plants and stuff like that. When you're cooking at 160, 180 degrees, those weeds and those pathogens, they don't stand a chance. I mean, hot compost, I can run at 160 degrees for like 2 weeks, and there's not a weed seed that's going to come and sprout after that. They're done. And honestly, if you do a cold compost and you've got old weed seeds in there and you've given it the time, they've probably dried out and gotten moist and sprouted and then died again before. But just know if you throw weed seeds in there, then they might come up, but a lot of times they won't. Hot compost is very fast. About 3 weeks. About 3 weeks of running a hot compost, I'll take the students out there and I'll do like a week, and then this side of the pile is 2 weeks, and then over here I'll have a 3 weeks, and then here, of course, you'll see and you'll know what it is. 2 weeks, you might see something that you recognize, but in 3 weeks, there's no saying that was a carrot, that was that. Eggshells are about the only thing that's left, and they're going to take forever to break down. And there's ways to get them to break down quicker, but I don't have time for all that. I just throw them in there. So what's happening on the inside? It's literally like a city on the inside. You have all kinds of microorganisms. They're breaking down the sugars. You've got carbon, nitrogen, carbohydrates, and they are literally coming alive, eating everything, breaking it down. Protozoa, nematodes, fungi, earthworms. Some of them are feeding on each other. Some of them are feeding on themselves. It's not rotting. It's actually turning into something else. And it's not fertilizer. Just keep that in mind. We always think NPK, right? Compost is not fertilizer. It's not. You're not going to throw it on there and then everything just like shoot up like you would if you put some nitrogen on it. That's not what it is. You're introducing a living organism in your soil. And I'll go a little more in depth and probably get just a tad uncomfortable here in a second. So compost materials are not always like, it's not just, there's a science to it. So wood chips, you think wood chips good, leaves good. It's not always like that. Okay. So I can't just take a compost material and throw it in my soil. If I take wood chips, for instance, and I just till them up in my garden, I've just made a problem because I just tied up all the nitrogen in my soil. Instead of the microorganisms working on other things, they're going to start working on that carbon that I just put in there, and it's going to take nitrogen to break all that down. And they're using all the nitrogen in the soil on that breaking that down, and none of it's going to go to my plants. So you can put it on top of the soil, and it's a good thing. But what I like to do is to partially compost it. So I will have, like, when I said I had like 1 week, 2 week, 3 weeks, I also have like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. I have like different stages. I have stages that are like fresh, and then I have a couple months, and I like to use, if I can, a couple months old stuff to top my stuff with. It's already kind of partially composted. I know I've got some microorganisms in there. I know they've already started doing some work. I'm not incorporating them in the soil. I'm putting them on top of the soil. It makes a great top dressing because it protects from the sun. So, the top of the soil is always dusty. My dad's garden, my grandpa's garden is completely different from my garden. And it's probably like that in here. My dad could not it almost hurt my dad to think about how I garden. Because he wants to get in there with the tiller and just bust it all up. It's got to be about that deep. I mean, you'll sink down to here in it, and it's great. He grew great stuff, but he was always pouring a lot of fertilizer on it, and they put up a lot of stuff. It's just a completely different style, but it never had anything on the top. So you could probably dig down about 4 or 5 inches, and it was just like dust. And then when the rain came, it would wash away, and there was certain spots where there was muck, and there were corners where there was a lot of topsoil, and there were corners where there was no topsoil. Having some partially composted mulch or leaves on top of our rows is going to keep that stuff from being dry on the top. It's going to keep, when it rains, from washing to different corners of the yard or the neighbor's yard or the creek bed. It's also going to help if we have earthworms in our soil. First of all, we didn't go in there and wreak havoc with the tiller where they live, but they're going to feel comfortable under those leaves and wood chips, and they're going to have something to eat on as they break the soil down and aerate it for us. It's going to help retain moisture from heat and wind. Wind is a big thing in a lot of places. Around here, maybe not so much, but in the wintertime, we get some strong winds. I'm sure it would help. It helps establish a fungal community beneath the soil. So a lot of the compost you can grab out, and you can just see this white around a lot of the. That's always good. That's starting to get mycorrhizal fungi on a lot of the stuff and break down. That'll actually get in your soil, and that's going to help your plants. And we're going to get into a little bit of that. The finished compost, better water retention, better drainage, more nutrients, less erosion, more earthworms, healthier roots, and again, the microorganisms. What we don't see in our compost is the microorganisms. There are nitrogen-fixing bacteria and mycorrhizal fungi in there. They have a phosphorus cycling that they do, a carbon cycling. They help our roots. And like I said again, compost is not fertilizer, it's biology. So nitrogen-fixing bacteria and fungi, they actually will grab atmospheric nitrogen and convert it into ammonia, which is in a form that the plant can get it. So there's like free fertilizer in the air that the microorganisms can get and actually convert it into something that the plant can utilize. And we don't ever think about that. We always want to dish out money to get our nutrients, but like Robert said, It's right there. Nitrogen fixation is vital for soil fertility and agriculture productivity because it enriches the soil with nutrients necessary for plant growth. These bacteria are also crucial for maintaining ecological balance, supporting various life forms by ensuring a steady supply of usable nitrogen. That is if I don't try to be the usable supply of nitrogen. Like if I don't want to just supply all the nitrogen to my plants. I think that's where we get a problem is instead of creating a healthy environment for our plants and a healthy soil, we just try to get the plant everything they need, which is not everything they need. We give them everything they need to produce a pretty fruit, but it's empty. Mycorrhizal fungi provide significant benefits through plants through a symbiotic relationship. So the hyphae so the mycorrhizal fungi, they make a network in the ground, and certain plants, not all plants, but there's testing now that is saying that maybe we could have tested a little better, but I know, like you said, with the blueberries, so they have a network, but they also will attach to the plant roots in what they call a hyphae. And what it does is it has a relationship with the plant that says, hey, I need this, and I know you need this. So there are certain minerals and certain things in the soil that the fungi actually takes up and helps the plant receive while it takes what it needs from the plant. Now, it doesn't rob the plant. It's not a parasite off the plant, but it's a relationship that is mutually beneficial. And they've even had experiments where they have did an input, maybe I think it was like 200 or 300 miles away. They did an input here and they did a reading here, and within a second they could tell what happened in the soil, like almost like the World Wide Web, and they read it through the mycorrhizal fungi. So it's all interconnected. It all communicates, even with pests. So if you've got a long garden row, say a couple 100 feet, and there's a pest over here, it can communicate through the network of the fungi and say, hey, I've got a pest problem over here. You need to do this. You need to do that. So it's amazing, but we can't seem to wrap our head around a lot of. I don't know if we'll ever wrap our head around all of it. It's just God's design. Read a lot of what I told you. The hyphae of the mycorrhizal fungi improve water uptake, which is crucial. I've got a picture on here. I'll show you the picture in a minute. Phosphorus, carbon cycling, same thing. The microorganisms are going to break down certain things in the soil and make it able for the plant to uptake it. The plant would not be able to get the things that are in the soil if it wasn't for these microorganisms to break it down and make it into a way for the plant to have it available. Same thing with the carbon. Right there is kind of what a hyphae looks like that I was talking about. So you'll have the plant roots, and then you'll have these roots off of it, which are actually built onto it by the fungi. But that is all. You think about inoculating stuff. When we make compost, we're actually inoculating our garden, our soil. Good, healthy compost has all of this stuff in it, and we're just introducing it in there. But like I was saying with my eyes and my worms and stuff like that, think about.
I'm in the box. I'll be right back.
See you when you get back. Think about the chemicals and stuff we put on. If we're pouring the coals to it with the nitrogen and certain things like that. I mean, what are the microorganisms saying? I mean, you get doused with some of that. I mean, if they survive, I mean, it's not an environment that I would want to live in. I think about, dropping things in the shop where we work on small engines like that. I'm not going to pick that up and eat it. But if I'm in the garden, I'll pick it up and eat it in a second. But what if I was just out there spraying a bunch of stuff? There's a lot of stuff that I put on before that I probably don't just want to pick it up and eat it. But why? Like, just think through that process for a second. Like, That's your garden where you eat, but you just spray that on there, but you're unwilling to just pick it up and eat it without washing it. But, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense sometimes. So I brought some compost tea in. I made some compost tea. I got a big batch of wood chips I'm fixing to start. So I'm going to inoculate it with some compost tea. I also brought different stages of the compost pile for everybody to check out. Got a lot of carbon rich stuff, and there's different stages of piles right there. And the one I made the compost tea out of is my finished product. It's about 9 months old. 9 months in that one spot. So compost tea is water infused with the beneficial. It's infused with the finished compost. I don't want to read it. I put it on there, but I'd rather just tell you what it is. So say I've got 1 million organisms in this right here. I'm going to take my rainwater at room temperature, and I'm going to aerate it. And I'm going to put this in the cheesecloth or something else that's can keep a lot of the chunks and stuff out of it. And then I'm going to feed it in my rainwater. And I'm going to give it a little bit of carbohydrates. I'm going to give it some kelp, probably some fish hydrolysate, humic acid. Usually use some humic acid, and I'll give it some time to sit in there and eat. And what I'll do is I'll go from 1 million to possibly 1 billion in my tub. And I'm going to take that billion and I'm going to go out in my garden and in my beds, and I'm going to inoculate. And sometimes I'm going to do a full year spray, and I'm going to spray my plants. And what I'm doing is I'm just introducing those beneficial bacteria into my soil where they can do the good work they've been doing in my compost, but they can start living in my soil. Longer is not always better. So there's like, I'll get to a peak point, and then I'm going to start going downhill. And then the bad bacteria are actually going to start doing good too. And then they're going to get, so I can't go like 3 or 4 weeks and say, oh man, it should be really potent there. It's probably not. All my good stuff's probably died, and there's no telling what I got. So it's also a living thing. So I don't need to just buy it on the shelf and it's been there for 3 months. It's not compost tea. It's not alive. I'm not sure what it is. Also, if I buy it in a bottle and I take it out and I leave it in my hot car for the day, that's not going to be good. It's actually a living organism, and I need to treat it like it's one. It's biology. So throw it away or compost it. It's really up to you. There's a whole lot of things in there that can be composted. You can just about compost everything. So a little story I'll tell you. So I do like things in the shop, things where the chemicals are. If I drop it, I'm not going to eat it. But if it's in the garden, I'm constantly, I'm not worried about. God made dirt don't hurt. I've been saying that since I'm a kid. I'm constantly eating things in the garden. So I applied some compost tea one morning. I was out in the garden and I did a foliar spray. I sprayed everything. It's probably maybe like 5 or 6 hours later. I was doing something else, and then I had to stop by the garden, and then I noticed that I had like a cutworm out there eating on some of my stuff. So I was out there searching for it, and I was like, oh, some of these tomatoes are ripe. So I was eating some of the tomatoes, and then I went over to the cucumbers, and I was eating one of the cucumbers, and before I had it, I was just out there chowing down, and I do that all the time. Man, vegetables, I finally got a time to stop, and I'm like, oh, this is a nice little snack. So I got home that evening, and I have a polite way to say this. I was very regular. Like nothing was really watery. Nothing. It was just very, very regular, like it should be. And then the next day, I was very regular. And then the next day, I was very regular. And I was like, man. And I told my wife, I was like, I took like 3 huge dumps. Like man, my stomach is right. Like our stomachs are always messed up. It seems like, mine's a little too big now. And I was like, man. And then I didn't really think about it. And then a couple of days later, I was like, I was out there eating all those vegetables that had that compost tea in them. And then it kind of clicked. And I was like, man. And I really, Robert had said something to me one day about our seedlings. And because we inoculated them with some mycorrhizal fungi, and he said, I'm not going to use the city water on it because it'll kill the mycorrhizal fungi. So I was thinking about my stomach, and I was like, man, I drink city water all the time. There's no telling what I was killing in there. So in the same way, we're getting stuff that is pretty fruit. Like it looks good. It's from the store. It's got NPK out the wazoo, but it doesn't have any microorganisms on it. It's not alive. There's no compost out there. There's a dusty old field that they sprayed some nitrogen on. Like, we really don't have stuff in our guts. And then back here, I was kind of praying. I was like, Lord, just give me the words to say, help me. And I feel like I got a good analogy. So just imagine that, just run your household like you normally run it, but one catch: you can't take the trash out. It can't come out your front door. Okay? So how long before you start realizing you have an issue? And then how long before your house is not as efficient as it should be? Right? So how much of our stomach, in our gut, in our body is like that because we don't have the microorganisms helping us take the trash out like we should. Right? So even like the school, like, we're bringing stuff in all the time, but if we can't take the right stuff out, pretty soon we'll ask him, like, take the trash out. I'm like, I can't. You just have to put it in the corner somewhere. So I hope that analogy helped. It kind of helped me, but because that's exactly what they're doing in the soil. That's exactly what they're doing. They're breaking stuff down and saying, hey, you go here, I want that. So if we don't have any in our stomach, and we're point blank, we're not getting it from our food. So, all right, that's my, anybody got any questions?
Keep this for the people online. So I have a garden space. Where do I put my compost operation?
Robert says he has a garden space. Where does he put his compost operation?
In the garden? Away from the garden?
You put it away from the garden. How big is your property?
Two stories for that. So there was a big operation in Birmingham called Jones Valley Teaching Farm, and they did a commercial composting operation. I mean, it was dump truck.
There was a big operation in Birmingham that had a huge composting operation.
When I toured there, I noticed
when he toured there,
there's
there's all kinds of trails
compost
coming across the property. There were rat trails.
I went back a year later, all the compost was gone.
When we went back a year later, they got rid of all the compost because of the vermin.
On a smaller scale, we and I have a small compost operation in the garden, and now we have field mice and field rats. They chewed on cucumbers.
Yeah.
So it's important where you put it.
It is important where you put it. If you've got the space, you got to kind of balance it. So you got to get it from the house somewhere, and it needs to be convenient. But then you're going to have to get it from there to the garden. So you just don't need to go, 5 miles that way and then have to bring it 5 miles back. I mean, but if you have that pile of carbon right there, it's not much for rats to get through leaves. But if you had like some wood chips or something, if they can't smell it, if they can't see it, rats are probably going to burrow in there and find it. But if you have apples and bananas and stuff just flowing out the top of it, you're going to have all kinds of pests. But we're always going to have a little bit of pests in our garden anyway because of our, because we have a garden. But you definitely want to help minimize that stuff, and you don't want to keep it right there next to your stuff.
Tom said to put it in your neighbor's yard.
Tom said put it in your neighbor's yard.
Ryan.
Yes.
So it's along the same lines, but how do you keep bears away? We seem to attract bears with ours.
Oh, bears?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. You have to have some type of electric fence or something. I don't think you'll keep them away. You just have to make it not worth their effort to get to it, I guess.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Yeah. Robert said put them in the freezer.
Thanks, Robert. Always
I don't think
helpful.
Robert said that, but he might have. Anybody else?
Hey, I had one other one. So I can go to a big box store and buy a bag of compost, right? Have you talked about the pluses and minuses of that?
Well, Robert said I can go to the big box store and buy compost, right? And you can, but it's like I said, it's a living organism and it's not fertilizer. So I'm sure there's going to be stuff alive in there, and there's good places to get stuff, I'm sure. But if you make it, you know where it comes from, you know what's in it. If it's been on a pallet for 6 months in the sun at the big box store, I don't know what all is going to still be alive in there. Is it going to be black? Yes, it's going to be black, and it's going to have some. It's going to have some substrate in it. It's going to have some good stuff in it that can break down. But if you want good alive compost, good biology, I don't know that you can get that off the shelf. I know you can't replace what you got here. Worm castings, there's a really good little farm down the road, and they sell their worm castings. That's a great place. We'll get into worms. I can take this that had the onions, it had the jalapenos, it had everything in it, but it's all completely broken down, and I'll feed it to my worms because it's been like a year since it was all those other things. The other stuff I feed to my worms, but when the worms break it down, they leave behind what's called castings, and castings are so full of this biology that I'm talking about. Like they're almost irreplaceable. But there's some places, some little farms, and it's mostly little mom and pops places, mostly people that have little farms. They sell those worm castings, and those things are so rich in biology. They're definitely worth the investment. So if you can find, we're blessed to have one right down the road. They sell a lot, so finding them having some is going to be the trick.
Here, one, application, when would you apply it for gardens? Maybe
Yep.
how?
Leo says when would we apply it and how? So all cycles of your plant life, it's going to benefit your plant, especially with the inoculants of the different fungi and stuff that are in here. So I would say you need some amount in your seedlings when you start your seedlings. You don't want it to be all compost, but mix some of it in with your seedlings. And then what I do is every time I plant something in the garden, I'll take a couple handfuls and put in the hole that I plant. And then periodically I'll do a compost tea and I'll drench my row. And I'm constantly, so I talked about the aged wood chips. So I put wood chips in my row. And then when I refreshen, I'm going to take my walking path. It's wood chips also. I'm going to throw it over, and then I'll compost tea in that. So it'll kind of speed that breakdown of that stuff, and that stuff is aged. But at all cycles of the plant life, it needs some. So I just incorporate it when I can. It's literally you don't want to just stuff grows in there good, but you don't want it to be just straight compost. It has other stuff it needs. Like it doesn't have everything that it needs in it. You know, there's not iron and calcium and like there is calcium and iron in here, but it's not complete. So, but you definitely want to incorporate it when you can. And it's not it's a limited resource, so you can't just plant everything in it all the time. So you got to use it when you can and where you can, sparingly. All right, John.
It's going to be addressed later is a perfectly good answer to the following question. I hate to ask the question about to address. I absolutely appreciate Robert starting with the Dust Bowl. The Dust Bowl was generated by government distortion. A whole bunch of side busting took place. It was not. Now, I'm an economist by trade, and looking at what's looming on the horizon from another distortion appears to be there's going to be problems with fertilizer and future crop generation, et cetera, et cetera. How do you envision this being put out on some sort of scale to be able to address that if those stars align in that way?
Are you talking about like solving the problem in the future, like a
Well, it sounds like
a feasible option?
Alternative. I love when you say this isn't fertilizer, right? It's
Yeah.
better than fertilizer.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we get, and I think there might be one of these moments in time because of the distortions and nonsense that's going on, that you will be able to shepherd people to think about doing this out of necessity. I mean, am I barking up the wrong tree?
Yeah. So we've got an issue. John's question is with the Dust Bowl and other problems we created. Try to paraphrase it. Kind of what is the solution? You know, how do we go forward, and what do you see the solution moving forward? So I really have no business growing food for 1 million people. I think that's where we've got ourselves in a bind. I know that we can't grow everything everywhere, but we need to focus on what we can grow in our areas. We don't need to try to grow stuff in California and ship it all across the United States, right? When people start paying, when everybody opens their eyes and sees the regenerative movement and how it not only regenerates soil, regenerates health, regenerates communities, but it's regenerating our bodies, they're going to pay a premium for stuff that's grown a different way. And I think that's going to help empower small local farmers to grow for communities. It's not going to be, 10 big farmers growing for America. It's going to be thousands of farmers growing for their communities. It's going to have a smaller footprint when you talk about, logistics going across the country, certain things like that. But it's also going to help resources with relationships. Like if you've got stuff that you can offer that needs to be composted, you would offer that in trade to the farmer or say like, hey, I can do my part if you'll do your part. And it's going to actually go back to how it was when we started, when it was, you had your stuff you offered, but you didn't offer it, to people in San Francisco. You offered it to your neighbors. And that's what we're going to have to do. It's going to be more of a small scale. And people are going to have to wake up in the urban areas and realize you're not going to be able to rely on stuff. We saw it with COVID. You're not going to be able to rely on stuff to come from the other side of the world. You're going to have to find a way in this urban setting to start feeding yourselves and start raising up people that can provide for your community. And I think slowly we're getting there. But as people start seeing the health benefits and stuff, they're going to start paying a premium for the stuff that's grown regeneratively, which is going to be an incentive for people to start being farmers again, regeneratively, because nobody wants to go in debt for the millions of acres and the big equipment and all that. I mean, the suicide rate for that type of farmer is astronomical because it was a broken system. But if you look at the land and you look at the farmer, I mean, everything says death and destruction, it's just, but this I think is going to breathe life, but I think it's going to be more of it's going to be more of a community approach. And it's got to be, it's going to have to be the little guys stepping up and doing what's right and what's best for their community, which is going to be, it's going to build relationships, and it's going to say, hey, I'm not taking my stuff to the landfill. John's got a farm, and I know he can use my wood chips. So I'm going to make a phone call, and I'll give them to him, or we'll work out some kind of trade. And it's going to start bringing relationships. And if we don't do that, I don't know what we're going to do. But I hope that helps. But
Well, it helps, especially, I've been an unapologetic advocate of having ag as an integral part of Southern Prep. What I like about your response is decentralization. Right? I mean, so much of the over-centralization is generated and subsidized problems here today. So I guess rephrasing the question, how can Southern Prep sort of be the first start beacon making that happen? And it's got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
To get people to observe and witness and catch on.
yeah, so how can Southern Prep be like a first start beacon for that? And I'll give an example. I mean, we got to start young. You know, we got to start with young minds. We have to. You don't have a passion about something that you never heard about or never seen. I work with athletes all the time, and one thing they want to be is they want to be in top physical condition. And if they take any time with me, I'm going to talk about their nutrition and what they put into their body and what they're eating. And that's going to ignite in them a desire to know more. But I'm also not only a coach, but I'm going to teach agriculture. And I had an agriculture club, and I had two of them that they were from Australia, both athletes, both came, and they tried to skip out on me one day. And I found them. There was a esports club, and they were up there gaming. And I went up there. I said, look, perfectly fine that you want to do another club, but your name's on my paper, and today you're mine. You know, next month, just change it, and we'll be fine. You know, that's okay. So
That's one of the many things that Colonel Ramsey stressed. Is, start putting better fuel in suits.
Yeah.
Huge part of that.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure there's no, documentation, but I mean, once again, saying, yeah, here's where it has to start. And I do think that this could be sort of the incubator, whatever the buzzword is, to start making that happen. And again, if this is part of where the rest of the presentation is going, please don't belabor it on my behalf.
Yeah, so I took those two out to the greenhouse, and we worked for the day, and they were both basketball players here from Australia to play basketball. And we talked about their nutrition, which they had never second guessed. They never thought about the food they put in their body. Why are we making compost? And I told them. And why are we stirring it? And I told them. And why are we doing the vegetables? And I told them. And we worked for an hour and a half, and we were done. They both came up to me. Well, one of them in particular came up to me, and the other one was beside him. And he said, Mr. Montgomery, he said, I learned so much today. He said, I'm coming back next month. This was a really good time. I'm not dipping out. And the other one was right beside him. And he said, yes, sir, I'm coming back too. I appreciate it. But they had never been exposed to anything like this. So all right, thank you. Oh. Show and tell.
Hey, John, another response to that is ag economists say there's a parallel track in the number and size of farms. There will be less farmers, but more of the big farms. That you have a rising on the same
You
track
going over
of
this
small farm.
You skip all through it.
For instance, the number one selling track is
Give it.
that here, which is small farm.
Hey guys, we did some testing. These are some of the results. I'd like to introduce Deborah and the amazing result she's had in 2026.
I'm not really sure how we did the slides because Allie and I spoke and then, but so if I'm a little confused here, don't be surprised, okay? And I'm tired. All righty. Basically, I've been giving y'all reports over the last couple of months on how the garden's doing and things that happen. And we did things like soaked the seeds of magnesium and, been watching the progress of the garden, which it's been phenomenal. Every day when I do go out, I'm amazed. On the 22nd of May, I did this hydroxy soil drench and the NutriPlant spray, which the plants had been out there for a little while, but I didn't have I had the magnesium, I soaked them in magnesium, but I didn't have the NutriPlant yet. I had not yet purchased it. So once I purchased it, I did that. And you can see, it's really hard to see the plants over there. But look how tiny they are, you know. Then, gosh, what day was this? This was yesterday. It was yesterday, July 15th. There we go. Now, that's not to a lot of people, may not be, you know, very short period of time, long period of time to them. This was a phenomenal to me. And what you're not really getting to see either is how much of the plants I had to cut out. With all the rain we had, there were issues. I, you know, had some bacterial, something happened. I had to spray with hydrogen peroxide, which worked. But the whole time they're still blooming and I'm still getting lots of tomatoes. I have pulled 9 5-gallon buckets of tomatoes out of this. And that's, I mean, I hope we did do a picture, I hope, of the one that I weighed. I just finally decided to weigh one. I wish I'd weighed all of them now. All right. This was one of the original May 31st. You can see my little red ruler. And I tried to get as best I could, y'all, but I'm struggling to be able to get where I could take the same angle. There's my little red ruler down here again. And look at the height. I have outgrown the tomato baskets that you can see over here. And then look how tall that is. I've had to put in new stakes. And now they're bending over. I can't keep them up. I can't get a stake tall enough. You know, I've never had I've been out here 10 years now, and I have never had my gardens do this well. All right. And then over here, we really didn't dwell on this one a lot in my prior presentations, but these are quina peppers. I can never get the name quite right. I tried some that somebody brought in on a tray, and they were nice, real sweet peppers. Y'all, there's 50 to 100 peppers on every one of these. And I couldn't get, you're looking at it the opposite direction. Those are the tomatoes that are right here. I couldn't really get a picture of them from that end to let you see a little more comparison. But there's what, 7 plants in there, and there's 50 to 100 peppers, and I've already been picking them. Yeah, the one issue I've had, they were supposed to be sweet, and I think my poblanas that are over here, back over here in this part of the garden, may have crossbred because these are not sweet peppers now, they're hot peppers. So, but I'm just, you know, they don't get much bigger than what you're seeing there, but they're 50 to 100, and there's still blooms on them. You can see, well, it's hard to see the blooms, but there's blooms on almost everything. This was the one that we were really kind of astounded at because the radishes and everything, how they grew so fast. And I don't know if y'all remember seeing the radish pictures that I had, but that's the same. This is the same one right there. Look at the size of the poblano peppers, and you're looking at a month and a half. Y'all, that's pretty daggone quick. Amazing. And I don't know about y'all, I don't eat tomatoes the rest of the year. This is the only time of year I eat tomatoes. I'm not going to buy a tomato in the store. They have absolutely no taste. And this is one of my favorite. I can't swear to you it's black crim or Cherokee. They look so much alike, and I don't have the time to sit and separate them and say, okay, this is all of one kind, this is all of another. But y'all, 13 ounces. I don't know if you had them that big. So yeah, I know you're not as astounded at it, but I've never had tomatoes grow this big. I'm just, like I said, I'm just a gardener. I'm not a farmer. So this is just amazing to me. Yeah, like I said, there's the radishes. Those things, it took no time at all. You know, that was from the 22nd to the 31st, and they were nothing. Y'all, I've never seen radishes grow that fast. So, all right. And I could have taken more pictures, but I didn't. This was the cucumbers. I wanted to do this one for Scotty because, I mean, not cucumbers, the watermelons. But nonetheless, it shows you the number of blooms. I don't get, did we do the bloom picture? Okay. But you can see just in that month and a half, once again, well, about getting closer to 2 months, because I'm in the way over here, that up there we go. That you can see the difference in the watermelons. Like I said, I'm not a farmer. Look, these are all brand new beds, and I'm growing on mulch. that I put down. So, amazing growth to me. And then, okay, then she got the peppers up here. Let's see a little bit closer up view of the peppers, how many there are actually on that one plant. It's not a fib. And then over here, just in this one little section, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's just the tip end of that arm. I couldn't get it where you could see it focus in good. There's a lot more blooms on that one vine. So this is for you, Scotty. You're not here, but I wanted you to see. That's a lot of watermelon blooms. And I do have a couple watermelons. I didn't take pictures of those because I thought the blooms were more important at this point. All right. And I don't know who's, this is somebody else. I probably don't have any questions, but I said, I'm just going to keep telling y'all how amazed I am.
I'm going to ask Deborah a question. So obviously there's great enthusiasm with your garden. Has this changed your practice of your gardening as well as your outlook?
Oh, very much so. Well, one thing, okay, for starters, I don't disturb my soil a lot anymore. Even in my raised beds, I go in and I aerate a little bit, and then I dig a hole and put other stuff in the hole and then put the plant in it. But I don't do all that tilling. I just keep putting stuff in on top of it. I didn't used to do that. I used to go in and dig it all out and turn it real big, like I was tilling it with my shovel. And I don't do that anymore. I'm much happier doing this. Look, stained fingernails forever. They'll never be right. I should just cut them all off. But I washed my hands. But that's for me digging. I love it. I'm happy. The thing too that you talked about that y'all, I want to put out there, weeds is a terrible word. I absolutely adore what everybody calls weeds. I literally have them planted in my raised beds. They're being converted to, a lot of them to perennial. And things that would seed out, plantain. I have plantain in there because I use it in all my balms, and things like that. I've got burdock, comfrey, so many things that people call weeds. Dandelions. There's so many things that I'm using now in my products that are medicinal, and it's not a weed, and I'm not spraying any of them. I'm getting rid, as you see, I'm getting rid of the grass. I don't care. It has to be pretty because it's in the front yard. Backyard, I don't care about, but it's got to be pretty. The grass is worthless. So, yes, it has changed my outlook completely.
So, yeah. So to her point, because she's changed some of her ways you're doing inputs and your practices. Not only is it producing more fruit, but it's producing more joy. I mean,
yeah.
So yeah. So Leo and I experienced the same thing. We're going around the thing about the weed thing. Actually, I actually looked up the definition of a weed, and it's a plant in the wrong place, right? But my wife says the difference between a flower and a weed is all in the marketing. So
To me, grass is a weed. It's in the wrong place in my yard.
Yeah, so just I think these are some pictures that some of our folks have been testing the products and putting on their garden. Watermelon, I'm not sure how old this is, 13 inch. This is probably a young watermelon, a juvenile, if you will. We sold some at market last week that Scotty did, and we tested the sugar content on one of them is 10%, which is about the middle of the premium sugar content for watermelon, with the magnesium and the NutriPlant as fertilizer. So nice sweet watermelon, not just water. I mean, it's got that sugar content there. So just a little plug here, magnesium hydroxide nanoplate. If you got questions about that, Tom can spend a couple seconds with you and tell you about that. That was a tongue-in-cheek seconds. But he can tell you everything you want to know. He holds the patent on this nanoplate form of magnesium hydroxide, the most purest form of magnesium there is. And it's got lots of other uses besides just plants. We actually keep it on hand and we use it for bee stings and fire ant bites and cuts at the farm. And it's a game changer. So my story is I got stung right there next to the orbital socket by a honeybee, and I thought I was invincible, could work with bees without a suit on, and they hammered me, and I put magnesium, just a little dab on there, and in 20 seconds it stopped hurting, it never swelled up, and it never itched, so it was gone. So this stuff's magic. We used to call it the magic sauce. Now we call it magnesium hydroxide. But just encourage you, if you're not using it, to get some. Here's another shelf commercial product. It's not as good as the magnesium hydroxide, but it'll do in a pinch. We use this a little bit in some of our foliar sprays throughout the season, not when we need the magnesium hydroxide. This has a lot of other micronutrients in it, so there are other commercial available products as well. This we absolutely love. And a testimony this morning, the Liquid Fence is the product name. It's a really smelly stuff that the deer hate. And our big pressure is deer. And typically about this time of the year, they come through our pear trees and they browse the bottom line of the pear trees. We have them all on spaliated on wires. And we noticed this morning that the mulch was all kind of turned up under the trees. And I said, Leah, what do you think that is? Because I'm not sure. Well, it was deer in there pawing and trying to get to the fruit on the trees. But we had sprayed past last week with some fruit sprays with, and I added deer repellent to it. And we had a 3-inch rain Sunday night. And today is Thursday, so that got sprayed a week and a half ago. They didn't touch any of the leaves on the trees. They were looking for something. They were going through and just did no damage to the trees. So big believer in the Liquid Fence. We dilute it farther down than what they recommend because you'll have to use a lot, but a little bit over time. Frequent time has trained our deer to leave our stuff alone. So big believer in the Liquid Fence. Obviously, NutriPlant AG 643. Absolutely love this stuff. Low NPK, balanced. I'd say it's idiot proof. You can mix it with other things. We mix it with the magnesium, some other trace elements like calcium that's not in there, and just make one pass in the field. And we do it all throughout the year. But this is our base fertilizer that we use now. I don't think it's certified organic, but it's all natural products. It's a great product, and it goes a long way. Really, you can really stretch it out. And we mix it with other things like the magnesium, the deer repellent. I may add calcium. I may add some boron coming up here in the fall. We spray our blueberries for bud initiation. But it's just a great product. We've got it in some smaller containers if you want to take one home with you. We've got that for sale. Do we want to do Jennifer's presentation? Buck's gonna, ladies and gentlemen, Buck Moore.
So they're working on a few. We've tried some products. They're working on having Labor Day roughly. So our meeting right at that point, they should have these 6-cell plants. You can buy 1, 3, or 6 different kinds for fall gardens, and they're going to have 6 that will be treated with magnesium and the 643, 6 or not. So you can do a side-by-side comparison on what these 2 products do. So Leo, raise your hand. Dr. Brandon, these are the guys you see to get stuff. So you're one of the ones testing that. If you're interested in doing it yourselves, you can sort of see some results that Deborah was talking about. So you've got some folks that know a whole lot about farming up here and gardening. I'm not one of them. So that's not what my position's here for. So I know brown stuff under green stuff. That's about the extent of this. I'm going to go a little bit into some of the history of the 643 and such. I want to jump over to the video first and play that for you. Then I'll come back and answer a few questions. One more. It's not going to do the video?
Says request access.
I don't know how to grant access. I've never seen it.
I thought you just push buttons to make the video play. It's not what you do?
Hit request access in the upper corner. We've never had that, so.
All right, I just pushed it. What do I do from here? Viewer?
Viewer, request access. And Miss Deaton, are you able to grant that? I feel like that's probably coming from you.
All right, now I'll go a different direction. So I'll give you about 30 seconds to figure that out. All right.
I'm trying to see if I can figure it out. Sorry.
I got it.
Mackie says he's got it.
Thank you.
We'll see.
All right, perfect.
Should have it here in a second.
No sweat. We'll wait for you.
I should have, hopefully we'll see, I'm gonna spray it again, doing a test run on sod for somebody. If they give it sod and it's not doing well at all.
All right, there we go. Y'all ready? Give you a quick history lesson here as well. This is 643. This is a small container, by the way. It also comes in 30 gallons and 260-gallon totes. So part of the reason that Dr. Brandon makes smaller quantities available for folks that want to test it, their gardeners. So Neutralite started in the 1920s. They created a way to take some of the best things out of plants and make it where it was shelf stable and concentrated. And they had to figure out what they wanted to call the brand or what they wanted to call the product. And they were back and forth and should they call the product Neutralite or call it vitamins, the generic product. So this is where it comes from. This is, gives you a little history on this. This is the oldest and largest vitamin mineral supplement company in the world. So the founders of Amway got their start as Neutralite distributors. In 59 started Amway Corporation. In 72 bought Neutralite. So today, over 60% of the Amway Corporation is the Neutralite line, including this. So this specific other product already has a very global reach. Amway Corporation does over $7 billion a year in volume. They operate in close to 100 countries and territories. So it gives us a very global reach. So that's a piece we want to take advantage of. So there's a few income streams that you can work with within. If you want to access the product, great. Thank you for being part of this movement for regenerative agriculture. But if you're interested in more information on how to become more involved with the marketing of the magnesium or with 643 and other products, we can do that as well. Tom will be talking to you about the magnesium a little bit more today. And I'll be probably spearheading with a few of the folks in the room, the stuff with what Amway Federation does for these specific products. So it gives you just a quick view of how it all comes together. So hope that helps. I'll pass it over back to Robert.
Buck stops here, right? Dr. Brandon, don't spray that extra fit on it.
All right, so yeah, just kind of sum all this up, everything from compost to relationships to NutriPlant, all those things we talked about today is, the goal is to steward what we've been given. And on the plant side, we want healthier plants. So we're going to do things, feed that plant, ensure it has the right environment so it is healthy, so it has greater root mass. The stalks are stronger, can take those stresses on, increase nutrient uptake. I hit on that pretty strong. And it can resist the stresses from pathogens, pests, diseases, those kinds of things. We obviously are interested in the fruit that plant is producing, so it's larger fruits. You saw the tomato that Deborah grew. We've got evidences of 40 to 80% increase in the size of bell peppers, and those things are more flavorful. And we can grow big stuff, right? It may taste like cardboard and paper, but what we're finding is that using this system, especially, our fruits and vegetables taste a lot better. The plants, more budding. I was telling Tom we had a record yield on our blueberries this year, a little less than an acre. We a little higher than 2,200 pounds of blueberries hand harvested. And we lost several crops because of big windstorms. They were on the ground. The geese ate them all, but we're probably pushing close to 3,000 pounds of blueberries this year on our orchard. It's the biggest one we've ever had. And it was just taking care of the plant correctly, using the NutriPlant, right time of the year to fertilize, better pruning, and that kind of things. And then obviously it harvests, better fruits. We're seeing less blossom and end rot in our tomatoes than I usually lose the majority of that because we're here in Alabama. We've had hardly any fruit loss in our tomatoes this year. And it's with the magnesium and the NutriPlant, better watering. I mean, the whole system, you can't just, not just one thing, but all these things contributed to a much better harvest in our fruits. Obviously increased harvest. We tell the story about somebody that sprayed their muscadines with magnesium, and they got 4 separate fruit sets, which is unheard of. Usually you have one. And we've got actually a row that we've dedicated to muscadines, and they are just loaded. I mean, they might break the cable support system, but that row is killing it. So we're probably going to do the whole thing next year, not just, so now we know what it does, we're going to do the whole thing. But obviously also loss of fruit with that. So obviously back to the whole idea of community, a farm is nothing without the community that supports it. John, one other thing we're seeing in the ag space right now is farmers always helped each other, but typically they responded to a crisis. My combine burned down, or my husband's sick, and everybody would rally. But now they're responding and not just reacting, but forming groups together. We've got to help each other out. We've got to serve one another. And that's a surge we're seeing back to the olden days where everybody helped each other. So it's the idea of synergy. The sum of the parts is greater than the whole. And that's why I love the regenerative movement, because I believe it's about the reestablishing of those relationships, not just to the earth, but to one another. So yeah, community gardens, I think one response to your question, John, is urban areas are figuring this out, more community gardens. I'm in conversations with the guy up in Tennessee that started, tons of community gardens. If you drive around in cities, you see vacant lots. I was part of an effort in Birmingham in a community where we were deeded 2 empty city lots, and we put a community garden on it. One was for herbs, and they employed use in the community to sell back to the restaurants. The other was vegetables that they used at their in city market to give folks access to vegetables.
You may know this given your agricultural history, but the
Victory Garden, yes, sir.
Very serious thing.
Yeah, I think we're there. I really do. So yeah, we've got we want to help you guys help your soil, to help your plants, to help your food source, and it doesn't have to be a big garden. It could be a pot, something in one pot. This is all scalable, one resource we haven't mentioned in the room is we didn't talk much about bees, but I hope you guys interact with Miss Amy Weeks back there from the Auburn Bee Lab. She is the queen bee. And, do you want to make a comment, Amy?
You love
it? Yeah, just buzzing up here.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for inviting me. This is always good to learn new things. At the Bee Lab, we're in the middle of our honey harvest time, and coming from Louisiana, we would have a spring, summer harvest and then a fall harvest. But here there's not. From what I could tell from just the area, we get a spring, summer, and then nothing. So the area is very different. And so bees don't always, it all depends upon the flower and the plants. That's what supports the bees. If you don't have flowering plants, then the bees aren't going to have anything to eat, and they're going to shut down production just to kind of maintain. So in the area where there's a lot of pine trees, you're not going to get a lot of, food for the bees. So it's just a neat observation moving across states. That was my one comment. Do you have any questions?
You mentioned that Auburn University has some property here.
Yeah. I have no idea about it.
We're exploring.
Yeah, we are getting a new building at the Bee Center. We desperately need it because we're out of space, and we have to relocate our research colonies because they're going to be doing construction on site. So we're working with the university to find another location or two to put our colonies on, so they don't irritate the contractors.
Dr. Brandon, does that put a bee in your fund?
We've got some space.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
I'll put one more real quick.
Yeah.
Obviously getting around this a little bit, so I'm sort of curious what the bee labs have been doing with people at farms, how this is sort of coming together with what kind of collaboration is.
I don't know. We have our extension coordinator or extension professor that was at the New Water Farms when I spoke there, Dr. Selena Bruckner. And so I don't know, we're still, talking and exploring things. I mean, we want to help educate and improve bee health. That's what we want to do. And so I'm here it's a resource for sure. And I knew that the undergrads and we all enjoyed our tour of the farm and to see everything. So I brought my bee veil today if we want to look in the colony. So yeah, we'll see. But we're open. We want to work with our local beekeepers.
We haven't done our summer harvest yet, and so we talked last night about finding a day they can come up and help us with the harvest. So we would learn a lot from our bee lab. So
And
that's the second day.
And what we're doing now when we pull our honey, we go out in a team, we harvest the honey, and then there's a small team that goes right behind us and samples for mites. So we make one trip to the bee yard and we get very important things done that help us to make the next decision. Yeah.
One last comment, there are some folks in Belize on the line, and they've been wanting you to bring a team down to Belize to interact with. Is that something you can address going in?
Yeah, Belize, I'm going on the assumption that y'all have Africanized bees. I've gotten to work with those in Guyana. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is a different subspecies of honeybee. They're different. You have to manage them differently. And I don't know, but I mean, I have experience with that. And y'all possibly also have the stingless bees down there, right?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, it's several species of stingless bees that make a very valuable honey because their honey is stored in propolis pots, which makes it more medicinal. And they also make a lot less honey, so it's much more valuable per volume. So there's a lot of value-added products with those different species of bees, which makes it very exciting.
Miss Weeks,
Yes?
we were wondering if you could tell us this season or this month what's something that we could be doing to help protect the bees or support their life cycles.
And where are you located at?
So I'm in Belize, but you could address that to the Alabama area or anything that you're knowledgeable on.
Oh, well, the Africanized bees have a reputation of being fairly healthy. So as long as you're making sure they have enough food to make it through like the rainy seasons, to support them during the rainy seasons, that will help them to keep them from absconding. The bees here, now is a very important time to check the mite levels because you're going into a summer dearth and you want very healthy bees. And we're also going through, after we pull our honey, and we're checking the rest of the colony. And as it goes into July, August, it's a pretty hard dearth here. And so we might even have to end up feeding sugar syrup to the bees just to get them well, healthy, prepared for late fall, winter. That's what we're doing now.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. So yeah, we are intentional. There are other things happening. Looking at this next several months, working with folks like the Alabama Waterworks (AWW) and Clean Water. I'll just privately say we're petitioning that New Water is a training center for water monitors for around the state for testing water. So we hope that's going to happen in October. So if you want to be a water monitor for the state of Alabama, there's an opportunity there to learn. But all this is leading to a very intentional increasing of our community. We're not just, I mean, you can't just pick one thing and go after it. And that's what I love about this network. It's constantly evolving, more opportunities to be a systems approach, which we got a systems expert in the room here, John Painter, that can probably make a nice presentation on systems analysis and how to solve problems from the system view, right? There you go, Mac. You might want to write that one down. Systems approach to solving problems. He can give a great lecture on that. Yeah, so this is what Buck was talking about. We've got the fall garden. There's a selection of crops, and we got small, medium, and large kits opportunities. Some come with product and different. This is on the table over there for information. We'll put it out on the network the way to get all that ordered and ready, so you can pick your kit up around Labor Day, so you can get your fall garden installed if you want to test for that. So. Yeah, so just remember, first Thursdays at New Water, third Thursdays at Southern Prep. Save the date, please. February 11th, 2027 is a regenerative ag conference at Newater Farms. We're beginning to get the speakers lined up for those, and we'll share more about that as that develops. But it's going to be a one-day training conference at Newater Farms. So February 11th is that. We will have probably at the end of August as well a community screening of the new documentary called Groundswell, which follows Kiss the Ground and Common Ground. But in the meantime, there's lots of books you can read. I just want to put a plug in for a book I just started. My wife and I started reading called The Dorito Effect, written in 2015 about the food systems and how they created Doritos and how it messed with our minds and got us addicted on certain flavors, not nutrition. And it's a really good book. So he's got several out there, but yeah, here's a list of documentaries. This is all on, if you want to look at the YouTube, 360 Living Soils is there. Podcasts out the wazoo, Joel Salatin, Will Harris, those are quite entertaining, above all informational as well. There's the link to get to our resource page on the YouTube channel, 360 Living Soil. That's going to end today's 360livingsoil@gmail.com is a general email address. Gets to Robert and Allie. There's my information. Ryan's we can post as Ryan.Montgomery or Ryan.Montgomery at Southern Prep Academy.org. Lots of words. Ryan.Montgomery at Southern Prep Academy.org. Yeah, so there's that. So, but there's more information. But also, Allie down in Belize, nonprofit organization she works under called Enduring Empathy Project, doing community wellness among agriculture. It's part of that. But I'd say check her out. There's her website. You can check her out. She does some really, really great work down there. Super excited always to have her in our network and our experience. But this concludes the.
One comment on that, for enduring empathy, there's a wheelchair ministry that's working with Allie right now. Look, you want to make a comment to that, but there may be some other folks who will leave.
So Buck's going to tell about an opportunity of an outreach with the Belize community through Allie Wheelchair Ministry.
So Network 21 is the organization we tie in with through Amway as well. Has a ministry called Network of Caring, and one of the charities they work with is the Free Wheelchair Mission. Allie presented an interesting option, so I approached last time I was around the founder of the ministry that she might be able to actually take. They actually can package, ship, create, package, and ship wheelchairs for under $100 per that are made to work in rougher terrain. So it's donated, so they come like $440 per shipping container. So there's been, I don't know, I need to get the data for you guys. This is off the cuff. So 1 million plus wheelchairs have been distributed. So she's now working with some of the folks in Belize on being able to distribute as well. And so we're just now starting to tie that in. So that's probably still a little ways out.
Point Church, Selma, is going to hopefully plug in.
Yeah,
they're down there. Some of them are down there now. So tell Allie.
Cross Point Church is one that Allie, Selma, and
Allie's the Anchor Baptist Church in Copper.
At the Anchor Baptist Church in Copper Bank. Okay, so a lot of tie-ins with all this. So I'd love to have you guys more involved on it. If you're interested, ask questions and help us keep expanding the network. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much for coming. Ryan is available if you guys want to walk out and see the composting operation and his greenhouse there if you want to see him. Otherwise, we are done this morning. So thank you guys again for coming. If you just take a couple of nuggets with you and apply them, we will consider this a win. All right. Thank you all so much. Thank you guys for joining us on Zoom. Y'all have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you, Dr. Brandon. Have a great day. And thank you to everybody who joined us on Zoom today. You're just such a blessing to have in our circle. If you have any questions, please reach out to us on our email at 360livingsoil@gmail.com. And otherwise, we will see you at the next presentation.
My section. Thanks, I appreciate it.